You're listening to the iRacers Lounge podcast, where we discuss everything iRacing in a casual setting. Enjoy. The iRacers Lounge. I'm your host, Mike Ellis. iRacers Lounge is a podcast for the iRacer, where we talk all things iRacing in a casual setting. Joining me are the usual characters, Brian McCubbin.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Greg Hectus. All right, and Tony Groves.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen.
All right, welcome. On the show this week, we'll review the eNASCAR Coke Series race at Nashville Superspeedway with Evan Pasocco. A brand new iRacing World Championship gets underway. In hardware software, we'll look at some possible new VR upgrades and new 3D prints to upgrade your rig.
And remember, you can follow along with us on your PC or mobile device in real time as you listen to the show and see for yourself all these great topics and products we'll be discussing by visiting iRacersLounge.com and selecting show notes. So let's see you there.
Did you know changing to a new set of pedals can have an instant impact on your driving? Changing to pedals that allow you to build your muscle memory and to be consistent lap after lap give you an advantage over the rest on track. With SimCoach's P1 Pro pedals, you can completely adjust them to match your driving style. Their new software, Visor, allows you to adjust the pedals electronically for even more adjustability. Take control of your driving with these hyper-realistic pedals. For a limited time, SimCoach is giving you guys 10% off a new set of pedals. Head on over to simcoaches.com and use discount code iRacersLounge at checkout to save. Let's get it done now, guys. What a great Nashville race. Topics. Let's get into it. Brian, you're up first.
Yeah, this first one came from the forums. It was from a user, Juan Fran Hernandez, and he posted in the forums that he was in a GT3 race and got completely ejected from the race. And after he was ejected, he went and checked out the UI, and it was showing as being completely offline. So there was some kind of weird things going on for a little while there with the iRacing servers. Mike, you had actually put on this link a response from iRacing in Twitter, a Twitter response, and for some reason it got deleted. The response got deleted, so I wasn't able to see what their response to this was. Do you happen to remember what it was all about?
Well, there was definitely something going down. I think it was Monday by memory, but the service was down. There was definitely some activity. Um, yeah, but it came back up not long after. I think if I remember, the tweet said something about inconsistencies with the database or something along those lines.
Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like they just had some kind of issue going on. I'm assuming it got resolved because I haven't seen any more responses in the forums that this problem's reoccurred. So it sounds like it's something that they just probably sometimes they just need this feedback from us racers in the forums who are like, hey, something just happened, and before they know to respond to it. And that's one of the great things about this community and about this forum is that we are, in a way we are kind of testers all the time, because they're always updating the service. There's always new things added, and it's just impossible for them to see how it's all going to flesh out once it's available to thousands of users using it all, all at different times, all different configurations. It's nothing they can ever check out in testing. So and these forums are a great way, so if you do have issues, I encourage people to use the forums to put stuff up. You'll never know what kind of response you'll get from the staff members to address the situation, and you could save your fellow iRacers a lot of heartache by bringing it to their attention.
Digress. I'd love to see the forums integrated into the new app. Um, somehow port the forums into the app or allow us to see the forums in the app. And that way we're not having to sign into the forums every time. We can just open this app and boom, we're in.
I think the worst part here too is, and it was it affected everybody. So, you lose all your you lose AI or your IR and SR2. Like there's some heartache from guys if they were racing and things like that when stuff like this happens. So it kind of just it's never good for the community. But I guess you got to understand things happen.
Yeah, but if it's on your end, where you have a problem, you get bounced out of a race because it was on your end. It's a little easier to swallow because it's your stuff, it's your equipment. But if it's on iRacing's end and you're getting bounced out of sessions and you might be taking some hits on your SR or IR, that's a little bit different story.
Well, they've yet to have a major issue during like a big event like the Coke race, right? They've never really had a down then, have they?
Knock on wood. I mean, it's been a while since they've had issues with the big events. I mean, honestly, kudos to kind of getting that under control. I mean, it was almost a reputation, where we were getting a big event and we expected DDoS attacked or the servers can't handle it or we had all sign up from the UI instead of the website, all this different stuff.
Yeah, I think that would be really a major thing if it did it to something that was televised or something like that. But iRacing in the last probably 2 years has definitely got that part under control for mega signups and stuff like that. So when something like this happens, we can live with it for a couple hours or a day.
Okay, Tony, how about late afternoon AI boost?
Yeah, well, apparently the AI aren't aren't up for mornings. They like to sleep in. Mick Peters noticed that the AI is getting faster in late afternoon races compared to other times of the day. And staffer Alex Saunders replied, "They're looking into it, maybe because balancing type testing is done with default afternoon conditions." So, uh, kind of weird in a sense, just because that's where they test it. That's where the issue would be. But apparently, there's something going on there.
They just need to get that coffee in them and they're ready to go, right?
Well, he runs the cars at noon. He runs the same race, same cars in the afternoon, totally different times. Now, weather's one thing, track temp, but it's a significant difference is the way this reads. And this is the one thing that kind of always have bugged me about the AI is when they first announced AI, I envisioned, wow, wouldn't it be cool to test setups? Like, I'm going to put this setup in these AI cars and maybe that setup in those AI cars, and I'll run this setup and we'll run a 25 lap run and see how everyone shakes out. I mean, think about the data correlations you could get on how to, you have 4 sets and you need to narrow it down to one. It'd be a great tool to do something like that with, but it doesn't work that way at all. It's designed a totally different way where the strength of that driver is not dependent on the set in any way, shape, or form.
So, Mike, let me get this straight. Now you're not practicing at all, and you're wanting the AI to practice for you now too.
I've done some AI racing to prepare for some of these races recently, and like the Skippy, practicing the starts, and then when I was setting up my dual clutch, for the launch, The AI was perfect for that, because I could do a start and I could stop it and restart and it would, do it in just a few seconds. So it was very handy for those kind of things.
Yeah, I get what your thinking is here, and the thing is AI is intended to just play like we used to play. When we used to play NASCAR 2003 or anything like that, it's just supposed to be something to race up against. And I guess with changing the strengths and stuff, but I think the thing that has changed from the traditional AI that we were able to just run. We ran against the NASCAR 2003 or older video games is iRacing's got that changing weather conditions and all the different things that they have going on in the background that I don't know if they could ever get it. Can you make? They might actually be 3 seconds faster in the afternoon. Like maybe not 3 seconds, but you're gonna have faster times in certain times of the day than you are for it. So that's why this guy, I think the only reason he's really noticed is because it's that 3 second mark. But there is different times of the day where, with the way that iRacing's designed, that you're gonna be faster at.
Yep. All right, I got this one, the Oswego story. We talked about this last week. Dale Jr. had talked about on the podcast that he talked to Oswego Speedway about getting scanned for iRacing, and they kind of weren't interested. So we got an email from listener Robbie Swan, and this is a wall of text, and I'm gonna read most of it, but here we go. Um, I have the inside scoop on Oswego. I've lived in Oswego all my life. So when I heard what Dale Jr. said about Oswego not understanding what iRacing was, it was heartbreaking, and I had to get the answers. I reached out to a friend of mine who's an avid iRacer and multi-time multi-division track champion at Oswego. I consider him a reliable source because he's raced at Oswego for 7+ years and knows the owners. He said that when he spoke to the owners, they said, quote, "We know what iRacing is. When iRacing asked to scan the track, we asked them to also scan in the big block super modified. They didn't seem interested. As a lifelong fan of Oswego, I get where they're coming from. The super modified is what defines Oswego Speedway. It's the very reason the track caught Dale Jr.'s attention. To clarify to you guys what a super modified is, a super is a 900 to 1,000 horsepower short track asphalt car. It has to have a certain size tire and not exceed a certain wheel base. Other than that, there's not many rules other than safety. So these cars go around a 5/8 mile bumpy low tracks at 150 plus mile per hour. They're the only short track asphalt car faster than a sprint car, and it's a spectacle. So I'm sure the Oswego Speedway feels that only half of what it offers would be on display if they only added the track. So I'm going to stop there. What do you, and let you guys chime in. I mean, what do you think here about the big block? Now, Tom Dreiling clarified for me that the big block we have, that's a dirt modified, and this one is the asphalt modified.
Yeah, it almost looks similar to like a Wayland modified, with a sprint car wing on the top, for more downforce. That's kind of what it reminds me of. And of course, they run asphalt. Of course, those Wayland modifieds.
I I think looking at this, Micah, when I read this when you shared it with us, and I saw it in the background of all the messages, but I'm wondering, like, obviously, iRacing doesn't see that. This is going to end up like, what was the series that you tried to get in that was only a league, or it was like a certain set of guys that used to race on a certain night.
Okay, but
Yeah, so I have a feeling this would just end up like a series like that, and I don't know. Does iRacing's got to spend resources and things to do this, but do you really think that iRacing's gonna, build something like this, because they're gonna use, you can have our speedway if you do this. Like maybe iRacing's like, yeah, no, we're not gonna do it type thing, because um, that's the only stipulation. If you don't want your racetrack to have, like, I think iRacing is good exposure for a lot of these tracks, and if you're using it, if you're putting it down to a niche of a certain car that races on that track, you're taking possibilities of your track being seen by a lot of people in the world. I just think it's two sides being stubborn with each other.
I think it's more or less like, I'm sure iRacing's got a lot more tracks lined up to go to get scanned without having that. Like, oh, you gotta. Um, I can't think of the word that that belongs there, but um, there's a lot more. I'm sure there's a lot more going on. Maybe if they start running out of, like, some of these smaller tracks or these other tracks, like, all right, well, we could probably do something with the car, and you know, it's kind of where I see that.
To me, it seems like iRacing would probably put a lot more time and coding and programming into a car than they would a track. The track, they obviously scan the surface while they're there, and they build the surroundings and stuff like that. But that's pretty much it, right? I don't know if there's a whole lot extra that goes into it, but a car, you have to apply the damage, the well, maybe not the damage, but you have to apply the tire
Physics.
models, the tire model physics. This is going to have a completely different aero package to it with that wing. So all that's a whole lot of extra modeling that they would have to do for a car that it's pretty cool, and maybe they would get around to it at some point if they start running low on ideas of things to bring into the service. But um, it seems to me like this might be like a regional type of car that's not widely run across the country. So for them to put all that extra time just to get the track and maybe not get the bang for their buck because of all the time and effort and resources they put into the car might not make it worth it for them.
This car is something else. I mean, looking at the picture, the engine is literally on the left, mounted to the left side of the car, and it's a big old, like, big engine, like a big old Chevy V8 or something crazy. It looks like, but it's a big old engine, and it's literally hanging off the left side of this car.
Well, and
The
it's
other is that the wheel, at the axle on the front and probably the back, it's off centered on the car. I mean, the left side of the axle, as you look at the car from the front, is sticking out farther than the right side.
we have a version of this that races here in Ontario. It doesn't look totally like this, but they do the same thing where they offset the car to, the left side of the everything's pushed to the left side. So when you're making the right hand turns, like going around the track, it keeps it stable and low. And even if you look at that motor, the motor's not even flat. It's sitting on a, I don't know, a 45 or like a certain angle there. It's sitting on just to the way the headers and everything go off it. But I think I think it's a badass looking car. I just don't know how many people want for it.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me like BMW motorcycles have their engines turned sideways, sticking out the side like that with that angle. But that's another thing, Mike, that you bring up. This engine's in a weird spot. That's going to totally throw off the physics and the weight and all that stuff as well. It's all coding and all modeling that they'd have to put into this car.
Yeah.
Again, it looks like it would be fun and maybe something they would get to at some point. If they're really looking for new oval cars, because they do have so many oval cars already. You know, but just real, it's a cool looking car, and to me, it seems like iRacing just doesn't have doesn't want to put that extra into it just to get the track to go with it.
Forgive me if I forget here. What state is Oswego in?
New York.
It's in New York.
So it's not really that far from Boston or from their actual headquarters, would it be?
I think that's a day trip, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing also if they had to scan a car like this, they definitely have to get a bunch of either a couple of the guys that actually drive these things in real life to try and help them dial it in too, right?
Exactly. I'm looking back at in my memory about, how did they develop a car like a rallycross, for example? They had the rallycross drivers, testing the car and running laps on it and giving feedback, and that's part of that development process. So they would have to do the same thing here.
Well, didn't we just do an article on, wasn't it Morad, that they had his Mercedes was the one that got scanned um, for that last build? So, like, he was in development with it.
Yeah. Brian, how about the iRacing Off-Road Championship Series?
Yeah, so last night, iRacing kicked off a brand new World Championship Series. It's the Off-Road Championship Series. It's a $25,000 prize pool series. Um, Last night was their first race ever. It was held at Crandon Speedway, which is really cool because you got to see the land rush starts. That's really fun to see. It all came off without a hitch, and the racing was really exciting. I watched a good bit of the second feature that was on there, and these guys are really talented because I've driven these trucks before, and it's really hard to keep it under control, to be precise with it because it's so much sliding and so much twisting involved. Um, it's a lot of fun to drive, and these guys are really good. So Connor Berry actually took the win in that second feature of the night by with a last turn pass of Keaton Swain. They were going to turn 11. It's a tight turn right before the jump at the finish line, and he kind of just buried it to the corner low and just made a little bit of contact. The bush pushed him a little bit wide and just barely got past him on the last turn and took the win in that race. So Connor Berry is going to be remembered as the first ever winner on one of these main features on the off-road championship series. So I watched it last night late on their YouTube channel. It was real easy to get to. Um, there's some other they had a before this race started. They had an all-star race with some guys in it that you would know. Alex Bergeron is actually in the championship series, so he's one of the big sprint car racers. You remember we talk about him every time the sprint car championships comes around. So yeah, really cool series. I would highly recommend watching it, even if you don't catch it live.
Yeah, I actually saw the pre-races. They were what do you call the celebrity race or whatever?
Yeah, the celebrity all star race is what they called it.
Yeah, so I watched those live last night, and I was entertained. The announcers are spot on. They drive enthusiasm. They make you want to look at the screen to see what's going on. Because I was kind of doing other stuff and I'd have it playing on my phone in my pocket or whatever. And wow, I'd stop what I was doing based on what they were saying. So the announcing was awesome. And the way this racing plays out is the start is key, especially at this track where they're all starting side by side. And they can be up to 2 rows deep. But what happened was they did dual races, and so the guy who won the first race, who happened to be one of the guys that runs this truck regularly in the sim, and he does it leagues, and then apparently he's run the car in real life as well. I forget his name. He won the first one, and so they put him dead last for the second race, and he won the second race too. So he was really good. There were some Coke drivers in there, Retzlaff and who else? There was another guy, I forget. And yeah, I mean those guys mixing it up and like you said, Brian, it's totally acceptable in this series and in this racing to really kind of bump and run, kind of drive it in there and it's okay if you rub him a little bit kind of thing. But the thing is you hit the guy, he's going to come after you. Think about Watermelon Man and Denny Hamlin the other day, after going after each other. Um, but that's exactly what I saw in those first races. Was there was one guy had drilled it in there and knocked this other guy out of the way, and so that guy who got knocked wide, man, he's going after that other guy, and sure enough, he crosses over and gets under him and slams him out of the way, and it's kind of fun to watch that stuff.
So yeah, so it looks like next Wednesday will be the second race at Wild Horse Pass Motorsports Park. It's total of 8 weeks. So yeah, I would catch these races. They don't go into the rallycross tracks. They're sticking to the purpose built tracks for the 4x4s. Wild Horse, Wild West, Bark River, and then they go through the gambit again, and they'll wind up at Crandon again at the end of the season. So they're not going into the rallycross courses that you see. Sometimes you see these trucks on. So maybe it's a good sign that if this series is successful, they'll start trying to scan some more of these purpose-built 4x4 tracks, which would be really cool because every one I've tried has been a lot of fun.
How many more are there out there? I mean, I don't think there's a lot of them out there, and they already have what, four? So that's just enough to pull this championship off, I think. Tony, how about Skip Barber iRacer gets a podium?
Oh dang, this is real life stuff. I was wondering what's going on here, and all I got to do is read, and I'll figure it out. The iRacing Skip Barber Formula Champion Nicole Gade got a podium third place finish at the second race of the Skip Barber Racing School season at VIR of Virginia International Raceway.
Yeah, so I just followed this up from the first week. This is the second race, and again, I'm following this up because this was the guy's prize for winning the iRacing series online, was to get a full season ride in the Skip Barber Racing School series. So so I'm kind of following, see how he's doing as a transition into a real world racing series. And again, it's to my money, it's the best prize that they've come across. I know 300 grand is pretty cool too, but yeah, it's the first series where winning the series gets you a ride in that series in real life.
No, yeah, that's perfect. As soon as you start, like, duh, yeah, we've talked about this quite a bit, and my attention is about 3 seconds long, so I had already forgotten about this. But you're right, this is like now this guy's got a podium, and because he won in a video game, now he gets to go play in real life, and it's awesome.
I'm doing well. That's the key, man. That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool because I've seen stories where, who was it? Gregor Hutu, who was like for a long time was like the road course king of the universe in iRacing, and somebody put him in a real car, and they had a short documentary about it, and he did okay. He was, I mean, the guy never didn't even have a driver's license in real life, and he's going from these iRacing championship series, and they put him in a real formula style car, and he did okay. He didn't do really well, but he did okay. And this is kind of cool because this guy's actually putting up some good finishes in this series coming from iRacing.
Well done. Not something not well done was the mini Indy. iRacing posted up a video this week of the mini Indy, an IndyCar race that was held on the tight confines of the Lucas Oil Speedway. And the video shows them actually starting three wide. I don't know what that's all about, but they don't get far. They get down into one and two, exit out of two. The leader makes it out, but literally nobody else makes it out. The three wide didn't quite work out well.
Yeah, it looks like this kind of played out as expected.
Right.
Yeah, it's actually kind of comical to watch, but it's you know, does the Indy 500 start 3 wide? That's why they did it, right?
Well, they do a parade lap 3 wide.
Okay.
Indy 500 starts 3 wide.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh, they do start 3 wide. Okay.
Yeah, they do
So
start
that's
3
the
wide.
idea.
Yeah.
Well, that's funny. My comment is exactly what was in the Instagram comment.
When is expected. Yep.
Yeah, I'm Mr. Originality tonight.
Even if they wreck, man, have damage off, get the car straightened out and keep going. I mean, if you have enough cars on this little track, it's still fun. And I've run races like that where, real fast car on a bull ring, no damage. It's a blast.
Do these cars at like Bristol
Exactly.
or South Boston or something like that?
Well, didn't the IndyCar series used to run at Bristol at one time?
No, they've done Richmond, they've done Lucas Oil. I don't know if they've ever. I don't think they ever went to Bristol because that lap would be too fast. You wouldn't be able to stop. You wouldn't be able to avoid anything.
And with the banks on that in those cars, the G forces they pull would probably be pretty intense too.
I mean, come on. We saw in Top Gun you can pull like 10 Gs without having any problems. So why not? Can't they go around this? Right?
Spoiler alert.
Sorry, spoiler alert.
Okay, Brian, Tyler Hudson wins for real.
Yeah, so Tyler Hudson, he's obviously the iRacing's esports senior competition manager, and he's obviously been around the series a while. He's a former Coke Series champion. Well, he took his iRacing sponsored late model to an actual real world victory at Jackson Motor Speedway, and yeah, he posted the result in his Twitter page. He's like, I'll read it to you because he seemed like so excited. It's like, I've waited literally my whole life for this moment. Have to thank God, my wife, who's been through it all with me, and everyone at iRacing who's helped me through the years. Finally, so I'm taking this. This is his first win ever in a late model race. So congratulations to Tyler. It's really cool to see him have some success.
Heck yeah. What a project, to put together. I think he's put together this team and this car on his own, and from what I understand, but put this effort together. He's got the iRacing sponsorship, from his workplace. That's cool, and that's why we talk about it. Obviously we want to support iRacing, but man, I mean, if you've ever raced Tyler, I mean, he's an alien. I mean, we used to run with him in the Winter League and we do run with him in the Winter League, and I mean he would sneak it in there 3 wide when you would think that's not even a possibility, and do some really put you in a compromising spot. But he would be never the guy that messes up and wrecks us, though. So he's got it together. Okay, current events. A reminder of the Peachtree 3.
Yeah, so Peachtree 3, it's going to be held on July 14th. That's a Thursday. It benefits the National MS Society, and it's going to send teams to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta for 3 hours of racing. So in the Corvette C8R GTE, the Global Mazda MX-5 Cup car, and iRacing's fleet of GT4 vehicles.
Now, I got a digress here a little bit. So I found this current event again, but I went into the UI, and then I just want to. The UI gave me some kind of wizard. It was like a guided tour, and I don't know if you guys have seen this, but we haven't talked about it on the show. But I wanted to mention it. It was cool. I mean, it kind of points out in the guided tour the different parts of the UI, um, where to do certain things. And you know what? I hadn't really taken a look at it for, in depth for quite some time. And so I kind of poked around. They've really added a lot of stuff that wasn't there before. In fact, they even have stats there now, and I didn't even know it.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. A
Yep,
turning of the tides. They actually
maybe.
they brought those little like, helper bubbles, or, the guided tour was with the latest update that we had. Or build, sorry, build.
Yeah, I think I just saw it this week for the first time, so I was a little surprised. But um, yeah, I mean, it's coming around. I mean, God, if you look back at when it was, 2 years ago or whenever this thing started, man, it's made some progress. Tony, what else do we got?
We've got a question coming in from our Facebook live from Shane Williams Newman out in Australia. And he says, since iRacing has the contract with Australian supercars, why have we only seen 3 tracks added and not the whole calendar? I think iRacing needs to bring in the iconic street tracks that the supercars race, like Melbourne, Adelaide, Gold Coast, and Newcastle. We need more street tracks. I think they'd be coming. They just kind of got to give them some time.
COVID.
That is a huge problem as well.
It was too hard. You couldn't travel, and I don't. From what I heard right now, you don't really want to travel anywhere, going back and forth between the States, Canada, Europe, Australia. All the restrictions for everything is just trying to get everything back to a normal. We're still not there, and I just don't think. I think iRacing is trying to take care of what they can here on the minimal amount of money that they or the money that they got, and you do have to realize that we did have the COVID boost for iRacing, but have we had any other boosts that kind of help um, fund all this stuff? Like they did a lot of content over the COVID periods, but we're gonna see some. There's probably some members that have dropped off recently, and we've been talking about that before.
Now, we've seen where they bought scans instead of scanning themselves. We've seen that in one of those European tracks. So why not do that in Australia? Australia is a big place. They're their own country, their own continent. Surely they have the resources there to digitize whatever needs to be scanned or whatever, and then send it over. So maybe that's an answer to Greg's situation with the COVID in the travel and all that. But the other question I have is, if it's a street race, does that mean it has to be scanned during the weekend of the street race? Like, they go into the streets and they set up the curbs and they set up everything. I mean, you have to scan it while it's set up, right? So you have to do, when it's a street race, you have to time it right. You have to be there that weekend. If it's just a track, you can go any day and scan it, right?
Well, didn't they just? I mean, obviously, Chicago didn't exist. It was built off of them an idea, but they still went and scanned those streets, did they not? They just scanned the environment, took pictures, and they came up with something with the scans, right? So, what's the difference of them maybe going and doing the same thing? I don't know if you have to when they scan, do you have to shut the area down though to scan it? Like, you can't have people walking around, you can't have anything like obstacles moving to be in the way. I don't know, but um, that's the biggest problem with the street course is it's only there for the events, and if not, then it's back to a working day.
Well, here's the other thing. Like, I don't know anything about the participation. I know, like, that stuff is popular, is quite popular. So if it continues to be popular, and it's bringing people in, and people are screaming, like, squeaky wheel will get the grease eventually, and they'll continue working that stuff out. Um, you know, Once they can cross other obvious obstacles, but Yeah, participation will probably lead that charge mostly.
And I think, Tony, with what you're saying there too, is they're gonna be they're gonna be wanting soon here. I don't think it's started yet. I think, is it next year? I think they're bringing in a Gen 3 car, like another whole new car design that iRacing's gonna have to design another Ford and Chevy combination again to, um, to bring to iRacing and then retire the other two. Because Holden doesn't exist anymore. It's now the Chevy Camaro that's racing over there.
So, how popular is the supercar series? I mean, is there enough people running this to even warrant the scan of all the additional tracks? I mean, if they only, have 15 people sign up for a race, I have no idea how many they have sign up. Maybe they have a lot, but if there's only, 15, 30, 45 people running on a regular basis, I mean, that's the people that are going to buy the tracks, right?
Well, I mean, it was enough to get them a server, right? They gave them an Australian server. So obviously there was some, but I mean, that could be just in general racing from that side of the world. Uh, they don't have to be just racing the V8 supercars, but I think there's a participation level, but I have a feeling it ends up being a certain night participation level, like some of these cars on iRacing, right?
So I just looked it up on the website for the twin ring Motegi, and they're only doing one split, guys. Field size 14. So each time frame, each rate they have a race every 2 hours basically, and yeah, they're only doing one split, guys.
You know what that reminds me of? Like 10 years ago when iRacing was, had the COT car and everything like that. You'd fight it every before the NIS series even exists. You'd run an A race every 2 hours, and you'd hope to get 6 to 14 people in that race.
So Shane just come back on our chat there and said it's third next to NASCAR and Indy.
And then
I think he's forgetting about the GT and European size, where they'd have like 400 participants every 2 hours.
That's road. Who cares?
yeah. Well, this is considered road, I would say, but anyway, I looked at both the Australian server and the regular server. And again, it shows one split only for each time slot.
Yeah, if that's what's going down, that's going to be hard to make a a real argument to bring in more tracks for those series.
Surely it would drive that participation, but that's what I'm trying to say. Looks like 20 people running this thing. Maybe if you look at it over several days, maybe it's 50. And then the new tracks bring in another double it. Let's say 50. That's only 100 people. I mean, they're not going to make any money on that. Okay, podcast housekeeping. Don't forget to leave us a review of on your favorite podcast platform to make it easier for listeners to find that podcast. Mention the podcast to your fellow drivers during a race so they don't miss out. We would appreciate it. Don't forget our Discord. And thank you to our Discord listeners or people are posting in there. Some of our stories actually come out of that Discord server. And we have the website to look at while you're listening. Boy, I'm really stumbling today. We're also on the Performance Motorsports Network. Fantasy.
I think I won last week. Finally.
I won.
All right, let's settle for it.
I think we all tied.
Well, we got Nashville coming up. Boy, I don't know. I'm not even the guy to be speculating on anything. But I'm thinking Chastain is a guy to go with. Maybe a couple of the Hendricks guys.
Trackhouse in general.
Yeah, they're beating up everybody. They're just being a monster this year. That's awesome. It's so cool.
Chastain's got some payback due, so I don't know about that.
I don't think yet. I don't think that's coming yet.
Wait till 10 races to go.
Yeah, wait till the playoffs when it really matters. I mean, I'd love to see Denny try and just totally eat it and, take himself out just because he can be kind of whiny. So I'd be all right to see that. That'd be funny. But, yeah, I don't know. I got to place my bets on Chastain. Kind of liking what he's doing. Obviously, it's working. And I was listening to whatever the NBC, I think it's whatever version of Motor Mouse, or maybe it is Motor Mouse, but they're talking about, like, you get this bit of a break, and maybe some of the other guys that are like laying back will start making making some headway, like Stuart Haas, like that whole group there's not running all that well, and Childress, like Tyler Reddick, man, he's knocking on the door. He's got to break through sometime.
Well, Tony, what you're saying there like really makes sense this week too, because they had the off week. It's kind of like a regroup week where they can catch up on some stuff with some of these building of these cars, and regroup with figuring out what they need to for the rest of the season, since this is the first off week since the beginning of the season. They haven't had any downtime like this.
Maybe it's not Denny that's wrecking Chastain, but it's Chase trying to save some face after Dale Jr. called him out literally for not obeying his crew chief. You think Chase is happy about that comment from Dale?
I just take it where it's coming from. Dale wants to act like he did something almighty. He spun Kyle Busch out, but it still looked bad on Junior that race, because didn't Kyle Busch come back and win that race anyways? Or finish like second after being wrecked by him? He didn't take him out. He just spun him. So, Dale, I have respect for what Dale says, but I just don't. I'm a Chase fan, but there's a time and a place, and sometimes it doesn't work out. And we've known for years, a lot of these drivers just run their mouth. Denny, like when Tony was talking right there, Denny gets involved in one of these things every year, and it railroads. I'm not gonna say it's the reason he hasn't become a champion, but there's things that just follow him around by the end of the season, and he ends up not. Everyone says he's a title favorite, and then he's just not there at the end of the season.
Hardware software.
Crickets.
Listener hardware review on the Varho Arrow.
Yeah, this actually stemmed from David's stream, where he chatted with someone about the Varo Aero VR headset. So we did a review of this, or we talked about it when it was released early. I don't know, probably less than a year ago, because this VR headset was claiming to have the best, clearest visuals that there were available out of any headset, and for the most part, everybody was agreeing with them. The optics, the clarity was top notch out of all the headsets. So he talked about it and asked if he asked one of his buddies to send in a review of it, and he got a couple other reviews sent in. Bino Van Rensburg, who we talk about every once in a while, he sent in a review. He said that it's his first impressions were it's not quite ready to buy yet, because remember, you're talking $2,000 to $3,000 for this headset. It's an expensive headset. So I mean, there's always going to be that cost versus performance ratio, what you're looking for. It might change from one person to the next based on, what they're looking to get out of it. And, obviously their own personal finances. That's a major thing to consider. But other people did like it and did say that it was worth it. There's a video that convinced some of the people that to buy it. He kind of really raves about it. Now, one of his reasons for buying it is because the hardware to power this thing has not reached the point where it's going beyond what the headset can handle. In other words, this headset might be two generations or three generations of hardware upgrades to be able to be bottlenecked. So the hardware is you're looking at this thing for years to come because the hardware right now can't perform, can't get the maximum out of this headset. So if you buy it now, that $3,000 over the span of several generations of hardware could make it a little bit more doable, as opposed to incrementally buying upgrades to headsets where you're buying a $500-600 headset every couple of years. So there's a lot to consider. I wish I could get my hands on one just to try it, because I'd love to see how clear it is compared to the HP Reverb that I use. But everyone who's tried it said that it's way better than the G2. So that's pretty much basically what this went through. Something to talk about for sure.
We got the 4090 coming soon.
That's what I was gonna say, Mike. We were talking last week about what do we need a 4090 for, but we kind of got an answer with triples and monitors might not be the thing that need the graphics cards that high. It's VR and stuff like that that's going to take it the next level.
Yeah, exactly. Because we were just talking about the 4090s being twice as fast as the 3080 Ti's and stuff. So who knows that if that's the case, then that kind of card might be able to get the most out of this headset, or maybe it's getting close to it anyway. But it's it's talking a lot of money, because that card's going to be a couple grand.
That's what I was just thinking.
And then
the card,
and this headset a couple grand.
the
You're looking
headset,
at
the computer.
$5,000 and just for that. Yeah, so a lot of money. It depends on what your finances are and what you're willing to pay for having the very top quality stuff.
Hey Brian, remind me at the end of the show. I have a question about your reverb.
Okie doke.
So I got a quote I'm going to read. This is Bino's quote. Would I buy again? Even if the device was only double the price of the G2, I would say no, as it is definitely not twice as good and at almost 4 times the price of the G2, definitely not. I can only speak for myself, but I would still advise to hold off for the next revision of this, or wait it out to see what the HP G3 and others might offer.
Now, here's a question I've been pondering. Do you ever think VR will ever get as clear as we have monitors now, or surpass monitors for what we do, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at? Like, do you think you'll get the clarity that a triple monitor will ever get out of a VR?
I mean,
no sweet spot.
I don't think so. Just because it takes so much more computing power to do it. Plus the proximity to your eyes exposes a lot of the limitations of what the screens can do. So it's so close to the eyes, you can in the older headsets you could see in between the pixels. So I just don't think it. By the time it gets, if VR gets to the point where triples are right now, triples will be way advanced beyond that. They would have, in relation, So I don't think it's likely to ever. That gap's never going to close completely.
All right, that's the Varho Arrow. So we'll keep an eye on that. I got the next one, Open XR support on iRacing. Sent in by a stream follower and podcast listener, John DeBug. Just finished an initial version of OpenXR support for iRacing. They're testing it now, and so far it's working very well, way better than the OpenVR. OpenXR? I don't get it.
Yeah. So I'm not 100% sure what's all involved in this series in this Open XR software. I'm assuming it's just a better way for the headset to communicate with your iRacing programs. So maybe it makes it a little bit more efficient, and you can get better results out of your headset with this. Sounds like right now it's in alpha testing, so it's a little early, but according to what Sean Nash from the iRacing support staff posted, the testing's going really well, and that it might be able to do something that they can release mid-season rather than, if they get all the kinks worked out, they would release it mid-season rather than wait until the end of the next week 13. So it'll be something interesting to try out and see if you get any better improvements out of your VR experience. It's I just can't tell you the ins and outs of this XR system, this XR version.
Okay, so more to come on that. That's new, and we'll find somebody who's used it and find out more. I was salivating over this next one just because of the look of it. I mean, this one is called the Brazilian RPM Simuladors offers their wind simulator. And they show a picture here of two large, tubes with looks like industrial fans and mount, as well as articulating arms, all very heavy duty, um, big old power supply, and it looks like a controller with really thick cables and whatnot. I mean, it's like an overkill wind sim is kind of what it looks like. Now, would I have bought something like this? Maybe. I mean, it's tough to do it yourself, and I actually struggled through it, and I had to enlist my buddy Kyle to actually bail me out of that project, and he did successfully, and I got the project done. But if you don't want to do it yourself, and you don't have Kyle to bail you out, I mean, these kind of products are a plug and play. Now, what I might caution somebody before they buy this thing is you probably don't want the tubes. I mean, that's where I ended up. I had tubes to begin with, and they really, really, really diminish the wind power. And so you'll find that you'll end up probably doing it without the tubes.
So I'm calculating it here. It's only 200, if I got this right, but it's only $284 American.
That's what I saw too, Greg. So we got the same result exactly.
That's cheap
That's not bad.
for what you're getting. Now this is in Europe. Is this Spain? I'm not
It's
sure.
Brazilian. It's
Brazilian.
from Brazil. Yeah.
It's got a nice look to it, though, doesn't it? I mean, what do you think of the cables and the connectors? I mean, you look at those. I mean, these are more heavy duty than this needs to be, but it's interesting.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if they have their own proprietary software or if they're using something like SimHub. I can't. I haven't been able to find that information out.
Yeah, I didn't see anything about software. I did look for that. I again assume that you're using SimHub. I mean, SimHub is awesome. I mean, it's got the WinSim tab built right in, and it's got a lot of neat features in it where you can set these fans. Now, I'm going to digress a little bit and talk about my fan project just a little bit because I've raced now a few races with everything in place. It's awesome. I mean, as you get faster, it gets faster, and you go slower, and it goes slower, and it's just, I can feel the wind kind of hitting my face, but it's not a direct hit. It's more of a swirling of wind around my head, and it keeps the wind moving, and then the sound of it too is immersive. I mean, as the wind is blowing faster and faster, that's part of the sound of being in a race car is hearing the wind.
Mike, does it change by car, or is it just in general? Like if you're driving the stock car to an Indy car, it doesn't make a difference of it, does it?
It all auto adjusts. The sim hub will auto adjust based on your max speed. Like it'll quickly, I think it quickly figures out what your max speed is once you're running, and it just adjusts the curve of the fan to that.
Okay, so it's just so like if because say the Indy car tops out at like 230 compared to the Cup car that tops at 285, one or sorry, 185, 190.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so then you jump into a Legends car and it tops out at 60. I mean, the wind will still be strong 100% at 60 if you're in a Legends. It's cool. I mean, I can't recommend it enough. The trick is placement, placement, placement. And I had three different places I've placed it until I got it to where I want it. But that's the trick to it, and I definitely recommend it.
Does it keep you cooled down too, do you find?
I don't know if it's cooling me down, but it's like I said, keeping the air moving. So it's definitely helping. I mean, at the end of the NIS race today, I mean, I pulled my headset off and my ears and my hair were sweating. So even if it's blowing on me, I'm still hot. I mean, but it helps. Yeah. Hey Tony, how about a H-Tech 3D printed steering wheel?
Yeah, this guy here, he's got a bunch of different stuff that he's designed, and you print it and build it and figure it out. But he's done the work to um, basically it's a DIY, right? So you just print it all out, gather the parts, put it together. Um, I just been kind of spending a little bit of time looking through at least one of the simpler wheels.
Is this right? Like $6? You pay him $6 and you get the model?
Yeah, it's for the STL file, so that's what the printer will read, so you can print this stuff out, which is pretty reasonable because it takes quite a bit to design this stuff. Um, the one that I was looking at didn't have a screen or anything, because if I were to ever um, want one of these type of wheels, I'd probably do this and build it myself. And because I run VR, I don't need a screen on it, so something simple. Um, yeah, and this one here is it's like $4 Canadian, and that's like what 50 cents American. It's great. They look pretty solid. They got this guy's got some really good reviews. Lots of people are looking at it. That's about all I can really say about it. There's not a lot of feedback on these things, so you just kind of got to go by the pictures and the designs of them and stuff.
Stiffness, does it flex? I mean, that's my concern is this thing. I mean, obviously when you print, it's plastic, right? So like when you look at my, wheel from Italy, it's metal. I mean, it has a metal frame and it's not going to bend. It's not going to flex, nothing. So I just, is there any metal in this thing? I don't think, I mean, is it all just plastic?
No, there is some aluminum or carbon fiber that you do have to add to this. I would imagine that'd be right around the the where you're going to mount it to the base. The rest of it, I don't know if I'd be overly concerned about it. I think it would be, fairly strong. A lot of the stuff that I've printed is, it's pretty beefy. Well, as long as you got the proper infill set up, right? Like this stuff here, you want 75 to 100% infill, and it's gonna create pretty strong stuff.
What, Tony's saying that there because you've printed a bunch of stuff. Is there different materials that can print or that can make it tougher that you can print with?
Yeah, you can print with. I honestly don't know too much about running other material. I just run the regular PLA, and unless I've had a problem with the print itself, everything so far has stood up to what I wanted it to do. I the closest stuff for for the racing, I am in the middle of building a sequential shifter, and that's pretty much all 3D printed stuff. And everything that I've got for that so far is pretty rigid. I'm not going to have any issues with that. And I also have a quick release. Now it's just to mount my wheel on the wall so I can keep it off the base. But there again, like that thing there, I could probably hit it with a hammer a couple of good times before I start chipping pieces off. I'm not going to like break it in half or anything like that. So I wouldn't be overly concerned with the there could be a little bit of flex and stuff, and normal driving that you would do on a sim if you're not like yanking on the thing or pushing on it or that kind of stuff there, I think you'd be pretty safe.
Did you say you made quick release that you can mount to a wall? I might have to inquire about something from you.
Yeah, they're pretty.
Sorry, I see your wheels on the wall behind you, Greg.
Well, I have the one there, but the other one, since I moved the rig, I can't put them on the wall anymore. So that's why I was just talking to Tony there. I might want it. I have 3 rims that I'd like to mount up on the wall.
Yeah, I've seen on the Etsy stores little 3D printed Fanatec things that you can like mount on a wall and then hang your wheel on. Look, Tony's pointing the camera at it right now so you can see it. Yeah, that looks pretty nifty. When I look at the third picture of the 5, man, this thing's thick. I mean, it looks kind of thick, and I wonder, because it's like so thick, can you reach the paddles? And I mean, it's really thick. I mean, I wonder if it has to be that thick because of the electronics or just because of the nature of it being 3D printed. But the other thing that alarms me a little bit on that picture is where the quick release would be. It almost looks like it screws on. It's got, it screws on. It's the weirdest looking thing. Pretty neat. If you have a 3D printer and you're looking for a wheel, maybe this would be a neat experiment. Let's go halo hunting. Greg, do you have this one?
Sure, why not? So Simon, is it Banhart? He's looking for a Halo or a Halo replica to complete his realistic sim formula rig. So this is this a Twitter? No, it's a Facebook post that it's like on the sim building or racing builds page, I guess. It says, "Hello, my question might sound stupid, but I'm looking for a Halo replica or instructions on how to build it yourself. The only thing missing from my formula rig is the Halo. It's just that much more realistic. I hope you understand me. So just offered everything, just offering everything where there could be something like that, or probably just wondering where everything could be like that. Interesting idea. I guess he's just trying to make it very realistic for what he's doing.
Now, we couldn't link to this because it's a closed group, but I read the comments, and the comments he got were, everyone's seen those 3D printed, formula cars like Full Sail was doing down in Miami. Brian, there was some other place they were printing a full size F1 car. They were suggesting maybe, track those people down, and surely they have a 3D, a print file, for that halo, and they can just send it to you and you can print it. That was the answer.
Sounds reasonable because didn't those guys create some of those prints from like scaled down F1 cars, and they just
Scale them up. Yeah.
scaled it up and printed it out basically, right? So that's one way to do it. But yeah, that's a good way to get a replica of it and get the all the dimensions and stuff like that. Even if he doesn't have a printer that would print something that big, maybe he can get the dimensions and the and such from that kind of resource.
Now, what if you're doing a do it yourself with some wood? I mean, Tony, some 2x4s and 2x2s maybe, and we just get some nails and slap them together and get a little plaque in front of your head. I mean, that's the whole idea, right?
Let's not let Mike build anything, please.
Yeah, you're on the right track, Mike.
So I imagine he's not in VR. I mean, because it wouldn't make sense to have the Halo if you're in VR, right? So he's got a single monitor or he's got triples. So why do you want to block your vision? I mean, I understand the whole is. I really do. I spend a ton of money on my thing. I understand immersion, but this, I don't know. I mean, is this immersion?
My question is, why doesn't he just put a pole in front of his center monitor? Then he's okay.
That's what I'm saying. Just get a 2x2 and just stand it up vertically between the center monitor, and you're done.
I'm wondering if the same. See, I don't think the same. It'll work the same way on a motionless. I don't know if it's got motion or anything, but like a rig that's stationing still and you're sitting in it and looking through to monitors that aren't moving, will your eyes get rid of the halo like they do in real life when you're looking through them? I don't know how that would work because you're always looking around. Like the reason that the F1 drivers and stuff get rid of the way the halo looks is because their eyes are moving around, the cockpit of the car looking past it. I don't know. I just don't know what that would be like when you're just sitting there.
For immersion, I'm keen on the window net. Oh, the window net on either side, That's cool. I don't know if this is cool. This is the first time I've seen somebody ask for this. Uh, but
Well,
I mean, hey, if you're an IndyCar guy, maybe you're an IndyCar guy.
if you're running a projector system, bam, you're good to go. It would probably very well.
Now the other thing, well, it would be IndyCar, Mike. IndyCar's a windscreen. It doesn't have the halo. Um, I just I think it's neat that we have people that are pushing the envelopes of what their sim rigs could be, and I'm glad that there's a community of people out there that instead of criticizing him, started pointing him in the right direction. I mean, we're criticizing him kind of, but just in jest. We're not, I'm all for him building this type of rig. I want to see what it looks like in the end. I'm just glad we have a community that can point him in the right direction.
I mean, the closest thing to this is if you had the actual tub. We've seen that where you get an F1 chassis, you get an IndyCar chassis, the halo's built right into it, right?
Well, you also were saying that people take pictures and like upscale them and things like that. Does he not be maybe able to take a bunch of F1 photos or whatever, or F2 photos or something, and maybe scale it from that?
Design yourself. I mean, that's what the 3D printing is all about, right? And by the way, Kyle Pendygraph, my buddy who 3D printed all this stuff for my wind sim, I was his first customer, and he technically has started a business of 3D printing. I think he called it premium printing, maybe premium something. But hey, if he has an Etsy store, and you can actually order stuff from Kyle to be printed, and he'll do custom stuff. He did it for David, markers for the football field for the marching band, so his kids would know where to stand during their routines for marching band. He printed me the pieces I needed for my 3D sim. So yeah, and if you want to replicate my 3D sim, hit Kyle up,
I
and
was just gonna ask that. Maybe I should hit him up and get him to just make exactly what you did for me.
I mean, he's got it for sale, so and he's reasonable. I mean, I sent him a little money to cover his cost and shipping, of course. And moving on, Mega Sim Hardware. At Mega Sim Hardware, you can choose your pedal, shifter, and handbrake system. And they showed off on Facebook at their Facebook page a picture of their three pedal set, as well as their handbrakes and shifter. Um, and they look pretty nice. They have a website. It's mechasimhardware.com. And I went there and checked it out. And I mean, the pricing's fairly reasonable. The handbrake 248, the shifter 248, the base plate for the pedals 74, and then the pedals themselves 702 for all three. So these aren't hydraulic. They look like load cell.
I think they have hydraulic and load cell versions, actually.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right. The 702 is a hydraulic, actually.
correct. And then they also have a cup series that are a little bit more cup version pedals as opposed to the Mecha series, which look like they might be more formula style pedals.
Where are these guys at? I'm looking it up. Shezia. I can't say it right. Chezia. Czechia. Eastern Europe is a better way to say that.
I would say Czechoslovakia would be my guess.
The new version of Czechoslovakia, right? All right. So yeah, if you're in Europe, you might want to check this out. I think we're on a thing about 3D printing this week, Tony.
Yeah, I came across this one just as I was scrolling through my groups, and this is this is a free print. So this is like the Asus bezel-free
Kit.
adapter. Yeah, no. So this is for 32-inch curved and flat monitors. And now is this one? I think this one might be could be specific to the Samsung G5.
Yeah, I mean it's labeled that way, and this is just the adapter that holds the plastic on the top and the bottom of the monitor. So you still have to source that. I What do you call it, Brian? Some weird name. From old televisions or old monitors, you can actually break them apart and get this plastic, lectan or
Lusan, I
something.
think it was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Lushan.
yeah. But we saw this in somebody's build a few months ago, and it was a really good looking bezel free kit. It actually did a really good job.
Yeah, I've bought and sold a bezel-free kit, trying it. My problem is my monitors have a pretty darn thick bezel, and it just doesn't work when you have the thick bezel. I mean, if you have a modern monitor that has a regular size gaming style bezel that's fairly thin, these things work good.
Yeah, it's nice that there's still a few things out there that are free. Um, this is one of them. It's not a complicated print. Probably would only take just a couple of hours tops, for all the pieces. And yeah, massive problem solver. Like you could find free monitors, free TVs that are all busted. Um, this build here could cost you very, very little. Probably like maybe $10.
Yeah, and another tip, I think it was Will Ford from Boosted Media when he put those on his large screens. I forget how big his are, but he actually made a pinhole in the middle of that plastic and ran a string, like attached a string to it or something kind of thing, and kind of so he could pull it tight against the monitors, because the 32 inches from top to bottom, it flexes, and so he put a hole in a string halfway down and pulled it between the two monitors to kind of pull it taut. I got this one, Eau Rouge seat review. Now we've talked about this when it came out, but now Barry at the Sim Racing Garage has reviewed it this week. This is the Cold Fusion seat. And wow, I mean, when you get Barry to give his blessing on a product like this, that's a big deal for me. I'm like, take my money, especially today. It's summer in Phoenix. I ran NIS, at high noon. No matter how cool I keep my house and how many fans I place around me, I'm sweating. I got swamp ass, my back is wet. And this fixes this, according to Barry. And he liked it. He said that the fans, uh, he was concerned that there would be cold spots, like you'd sit and you'd only feel it in one spot in your back. But the way it's designed, it actually evenly distributes that cool, basically, from your butt all the way up your back to around your head. And he was pleasantly surprised by it, and it definitely keeps them cool. And the other concern he had was stiffness. How stiff is this seat? Is it going to hold up to my rigorous standards? He was comparing it to the Sparco Evo seat, and he basically said it's good. It's not exactly the same in stiffness as the Sparco, but it's stiff enough that he would strongly consider making this his daily driver, basically.
Yeah, another thing that he was concerned about that I picked up on was that he was afraid that you'd feel the fans through your back and stuff because it's got the fans, and he said the cushioning and everything else, you do not feel those fans against your back. There's no protrusions that are pushing against you. Um, so yeah, he was really impressed with that as well.
This is on my list now, guys, for sure. 100%. Now, I don't know when, but yeah, I'm going to go for the cold seat. It'll happen before next summer, I guarantee. It won't happen this year, but this is going to be a fall project. It's 800 and something dollars. That's chicken chump change. I'm going to get it. All right, Brian, we got a teaser from our friends at Sim Coach.
Yeah, this was on their web Instagram page, and I think Twitter as well, maybe, or Facebook. So so obviously Sync Coaches, it's our title sponsor, and they had the best hydraulic pedals on the market, and they did just this quick little video. They don't give you a whole lot of pictures. They don't give you any real information other than they're looking for a Q3 of 2022 release. So looking for that sometime in the next couple of months. But my guess is that it might be a load cell version of their pedals. I'm not 100% sure what it is, though.
That's what I was initially guessing, Brian, when they put this out. And they widespread put it out. And my concern, like I said, load cell all the way because, that's something they don't sell. But then the very next day, we get an Instagram from them that shows just a picture of the hydraulic uh, cylinder. It says the P1 Pro hydraulic cylinder waiting to be put on something. So another tease.
Yeah, and this cylinder looks like it's a lot smaller than the ones that they've previously used. So maybe this is just more of a compact design.
I don't know, but I'm intrigued. Maybe it's just a new version of their award-winning pedals. Maybe it's time for V2.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, be interesting. I'm really curious, and I want to know now. But
Tell us now. Okay, Tony, how about SimWare?
Yeah, this comes from simware.eu. And they offer wheelbases, pedals, steering wheels. But they do it from a bunch of different manufacturers. And this picture that we're looking at is, I believe it's a newer wheel offering from SimMagic. And it's like the F1 style. With all the F1 stuff that you get, rotaries and push buttons.
This is awesome because if you bought one of these wheelbases, you were pretty much stuck buying the wheels that they offered with it. And there were literally no other versions until now. And so you're saying this is a third party that sells the wheel that goes with those bases?
Yeah, well, this is a SimMagic wheel. This is a company that sells
Oh, they're
SimMagic
just
stuff.
reselling it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, they're a distributor, a retailer of the SimMagics, looks
That
like, and they have a
that
couple other brands too that the Moza wheels that we've or wheelbases that we've checked out before. And Moza, if you remember, was is a big karting um, company that makes karting parts, and this actual SimWare design website sells karting stuff as well as sim racing stuff. So they've kind of like merged the two into one website where you can get the products for both.
Cool. Yeah, they're selling the Acetec pedals that we talked about a couple months ago. All right, so just another. Obviously, if you're in Europe, that's a source for you guys to get those. And then finally, we have this rig review that came in today from overtake.gg. Boy, I mean, talk about not missing race or practice. What do you think of this one?
I give it a 2.
That's a good one.
All right, so for our audio listeners, I'll describe what I see. We have a picture of somebody's bathroom, and sitting in front of the toilet seat is a little cart set up with pedals, a steering wheel, base, keyboard, mouse, and monitor, and a computer somewhere in there. But yeah, I mean, you can literally sit at the throne and run your race.
Yeah, that's some serious dedication there to your sim racing if you're going to be going through all that.
I call this multitasking to the next level.
You better hope that if you have one of those constipated bouts, it's under caution.
Yeah, make sure you don't hold down your talk button.
They don't have the push to talk. They have just the old David problem when it was always open.
Maybe the guy just needs some privacy. Maybe this is the only room in the house he can get away from the kids and lock himself in and just run his race.
Now, I'm more concerned about the medicine cabinet behind. Why is it falling off the wall and broken? Did he have a bad race?
Well, I was kind of looking at the stuff on the counter and Ziploc bags. I mean, what do you use that for in the bathroom?
He's obviously filing his nails and clipping his toenails while he's driving too.
Yeah, didn't you see that rear view mirror mounted just above the monitor?
I'd be more impressed if he had triples in there. It's so close to the shower, though. You better hope that no water gets on it.
Well, he's ready for rain. If rain, the shower on, he's right there to get some immersion.
To keep the smell proper in the bathroom, should he get some of those racing candles, Brian?
I would recommend it. Yeah.
Get the old skid mark candle.
Title idea. Results. Let's jump into our racing results. And it's so nice to say NIS is back. I mean, I haven't raced in a couple of weeks. And we're at Nashville Super Speedway, Wednesday Open. Man, I wrecked out. But I ran top 5 all day. I led some laps. With 5 to go on a restart, someone took us 3 wide and floated up and wiped us all out. 16 minutes required. I was running 4th or 5th. I think, the guy took out, 3rd and 4th. I mean, we were side by side. I couldn't go up anymore. I left the guy a lane anyway, and he still couldn't hold it and came up and wiped us out. It's late in the race. I don't know how I could have avoided it, but man, it felt good to be up front and be in the action at the front. In the beginning of the race, I was hesitant, man, overdriving it, floating up in the corner, can't keep it on the bottom. But I got it together. Now, Steve Llewellyn, my teammate, he ran as well, but he was wrecked out early. But thanks, Steven, he did stick around and spot for me as I tried to get that win, and he was super helpful. But it just didn't work out for us. Thursday Open today, David Hall wrecked. He said, "Screw everybody."
He's in a good mood. Poor guy. He's just getting wrecked out left and right.
He's having the feeling that I've had while being in the fast track league the last little bit.
Yeah, he didn't last long. Maybe 50 laps or something. Then he got wrecked. But I ran as well, P8, and I'll call it. This is the title idea: opportunities squandered. I ran top 5 all day again. This time I actually led the most laps. After green flag stops, I had a 5.5-second lead on second place and enough gas to make it to the end of the race. Of course, a caution came out and ruined it. And then I ruined it even worse by somehow getting an unsafe pit exit. I have no idea why. It ruined my race. I couldn't regain the lost track position. I came back up from 14th to 8th, but had used up my tires by that point, and another caution wouldn't come to bail me out. So P8, but I felt like had the caution not come out, I had that baby won. I mean, I had a 5.5 second lead, and I was holding it. And before the green flag run, I was actually maybe 2.5 second lead, and I was gapping them it was increasing. So I was the fastest car out there, especially on the short run. But yeah, P8. Moving on to official road, I ran Skippies at Okayama. Started P4, got to P2. Then wasn't paying attention and downshifted instead of upshifted and blew the motor. Next race, started P4, eventually took the lead in a spirited battle with a car with equal speed. It was super fun stuff. I mean, super fun. I can't believe how much fun I have in a road car doing this. I eventually spun trying too hard to gap the guy and ended up P6. Can't overdrive these cars. Next race started P2. Got to the lead, but spun it because I suck. Fell to P3, but got back to P2. I feel like I finally have actual speed in this car. Now, Greg, a week ago when I was talking about speeds at Okayama, you were saying, just because you won, you said you didn't have speed. So now I've run it several times throughout the week, and I feel like at the end of the week I actually have speed.
You mean you got better by making more laps and practicing the course?
Worked. It worked.
Wow. We got to thank Dave Cam again for suggesting that practice is one of 5 good things to do as an iRacer.
Yeah, I think you guys found something that if you practice, we'll have to rewrite all the books about how to be a good racer.
It was races. It wasn't technically practice. I ran a bunch of races. Now, I sat down Monday night to run again. Oh, and I was looking forward to Okayama, man. I don't think I could win it. But guess what? Track changed. It's Daytona, and it's the moto version of Daytona. You know what? I've never been on that version of the track. And so it's like a brand new track to me. And you know what? It's so weird. I've been running Daytona for 12 years. The road course, the oval, whatever. And now all of a sudden I'm on this weird version I've never been on. It was kind of it was interesting for sure. But I started P8, I finished P8. Pretty much everybody got spread out. It wasn't fun. I mean, it wasn't like I was racing people. It was just trying not to make mistakes and keep what I can keep. And we all pretty much finished where we started. So I don't know if I'm going to run a lot of Daytona Moto this week just because I didn't have fun with it. I'll probably try it again, maybe tonight.
You do realize what day of the week it is too, right? That it's Thursday.
Yeah.
It's not been a great week for you this week, has it, Mike?
I was ready to run NIS on Tuesday, wasn't I?
That was one of the best